Welcome back to the Significant Coaching Podcast, the show where we have real conversations with college coaches about leadership, team culture, and the human side of the coaching journey. I'm your host, Coach Matt Rogers, and today's episode features a coach who brings authenticity, strategic brilliance, and a calm confidence to the court, Mitchell McPartland, head volleyball coach at the University of Chicago. Mitchell's rise through the coaching ranks, from a volunteer assistant at South Florida to leading one of the most respected Division III programs in the country, is a masterclass in growth, trust, and staying true to your roots. We'll talk about what it means to lead with humility, how to build a culture of consistency and significance in one of the toughest conferences in NCAA Division III. We're also going to talk about his experience as a back row player, a libero, shaped the way he sees the entire game. Before we get started, a quick reminder to check out CoachMattRogers.com for all your college recruiting and leadership resources. You'll find my weekly blog, info about speaking events, free tools for families, and my book, Significant Recruiting, the Playbook for Prospective College Athletes. You can also schedule one-on-one recruiting strategy sessions or book me to speak at your school organization. And hey, if you enjoy the podcast, do me a favor. Subscribe on your favorite platform, leave a rating or a review, send me a message with your thoughts. And don't forget to share this episode with a coach, an athlete, or a parent who needs to hear it. You can always follow me on most social media platforms at Coach Matt Rogers. And check me out. Send me a message. All right, let's dive into my conversation with Coach Mitchell McPartland. Coach McPartland, thank you so much for being on the show. I want to start a little bit talking about University of Chicago. When I think of some of the great universities in the history of the United States, University of Chicago pops in my head, and for all the right reasons. I think you've had 40 Nobel Prize winners, 25 Pulitzer Prize winners, 4 alum have won Academy Awards. The list of all these great accomplishments goes on and on for University of Chicago alums. How has that been for you to be at that type of place? Do you feel that sense of history?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's pretty hard to miss just being on campus. There's certainly an atmosphere or a feel for that kind of history. As someone who doesn't come from a high academic background like you, Chicago, I think sometimes I'm not as in tune to some of it as others on campus. But obviously, the type of women we recruit and just being around all the athletes, knowing other people across campus, there's certainly a huge sense of pride across campus to be here, even if for me, I'm not a faculty member. I don't teach or anything like that. But obviously, there's a sense of greatness and I think a huge sense of pride for being who we are as an institution. And I think credit to you, Chicago, for I think they continually what they represent. And they've continued to do that for a long time now. It's what attracts students to be here.
You've been such a great inclusion in that and what you've done with the team and how you're building that program. It's been really impressive and fun to watch. You spent time at South Florida and at Drake and now University of Chicago, 3 very diverse stops for you. What has that been like, that journey, and how would you compare the 3 when you're talking to families and recruits?
I think obviously Drake and South Florida being Division I institutions, but very different Division I institutions from a location size. They're very different from one another. I think the biggest thing for me has been Division III is just the balance and the academic priority. Not to say that some of our athletes at Drake, South Florida, academics were not a priority for them per se, but obviously the way Division III is set up and the limitations we have, I think I just so appreciate that I get to coach women who are really passionate about volleyball, passionate about competing for national championship, competing to be the best at their sport, but they are just incredible people, very passionate about obviously their academic endeavors, other extracurricular activities. And I just love that. I think that's why I really I feel like I found my fit personally in coaching in Division III, is because I feel like that's how I view life as well, is that it's great to have that balance and that opportunity to pursue what you are passionate about. And I think at a place like U Chicago or other Division III institutions, you really get that opportunity. And that's not to say that there aren't great opportunities at institutions like Drake or South Florida. We talk about the recruiting process and is being at a place like U Chicago, it's a 40-year plan, not a 4-year plan. And I think because obviously the students here are here to get an incredible education and to be challenged, but it's something that's going to set them up for the rest of their life to be successful. And I just really appreciate being at an institution that in a department that really prioritizes that.
I'm going to be at a high school speaking to a bunch of families tomorrow night. And it's one of the things I always talk about is I wish I could give every parent the experience of being on a University of Chicago campus, on a beautiful campus.
Yeah.
And really what is different than a Drake and a South Florida or wherever we're talking about, because the size is immense. They've got South Florida's got a great reputation. Drake's got a great reputation. But what you get in terms of one-on-one in that experience is so unique and so good for your soul. Have you found that? Is that a sense of yours? And do you use that as a marketing tool with your recruits?
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's something that admissions certainly makes a priority is that student professor relationship. And I know that in talking to our players, that's, I think, it's not the only reason, obviously, that they came here, but it was a big reason why is that those oftentimes the professors of our players are incredibly experienced in the field in which that they teach. I mean, oftentimes that they did that first, whether it's, hey, obviously we're really well known for our econ. We have professors who are incredibly just experienced in the econ world. And then they just having that, I think just the connections there is really valuable, and not just like the information that they're learning, but the real life work experience that they're getting. And so I think that's definitely something that is a huge plus, something that we talk in the recruiting process. A lot of our players talk about how a lot of our classes are very discussion based, and Chicago obviously talks a lot about free thinking, free speech. And so I think it's really cool for our players to have the opportunity to listen and hear and be a part of conversations with people from all different backgrounds. And obviously all of our experiences shape whatever our reality is, our own individual reality. So I think it's really cool for them to have that experience. And a lot of their classes are really small. One of our players last quarter had a class, it was a class of 5 people as a first year. So just, and people at U Chicago are not intimidated by that experience. Just being a first year, they look at it as, oh, wow, this is a really opportunity for me to have really intimate, high quality conversations about topics that we're passionate about. And I think that's something that obviously they really love about being here. Not everybody, right? Some people, that's maybe not their thing, but for the most part, I think maybe if they don't realize it in the moment, it's something that they really appreciate, a part of their academic journey here, and just how that's going to translate to them or translate for them in whatever they do for the rest of their life.
And I'm a small private school kid. I went to college. So for me, I have a very unique perspective on this in terms of, I know what it did for me. I really look at it. And again, maybe this is my ego, maybe this is just my personal perspective, but I think it forces you to be authentic and figure out who your authentic self is. Do you get a sense of that too?
Absolutely. I'm from Iowa originally. I went to Grandview in Iowa. I do think we live in a society right now where we are fed opinions and not necessarily encouraged to think for ourselves all the time. The students here, I think they're encouraged to really, hey, you're going to hear other people's opinions. You're going to hear my opinion, but I really want you to formulate your own opinion and think about your own experiences and how that's shaped who you are. And I certainly think that smaller, more intimate experience does allow you to be maybe more authentically you and not maybe hide behind other people. And that's obviously going to help you as you enter into the workplace and just become a great human being.
Yeah. In a lecture hall with 300 kids, you can hide. In a classroom with 5 kids, you better be engaged or.
Yeah, absolutely. For sure. And that's where some people, that's terrifying, obviously. But it's okay to have that discomfort, that uncomfortability, because it's obviously going to just create growth and opportunities for you to learn a lot about yourself.
Absolutely. Talking to university presidents recently, the conversation always goes back to how do we better prepare these kids to be adults? What are we doing? Not just teaching them about economics and physics and biology and English, but what are we doing to help them become better adults and learn how to live in this world? So I think those things all go hand in hand. The more they get that one-on-one contact with adults, with professors, with staff members, They can build relationships. They can see, wow, I really like how coach handles himself. I really like how this professor handles himself and how they treat me.
Yeah.
It's that, to me, that's the value of going to a college, right?
100%. The life experience is, and I do think it is such a formative time of your life. It's like
Yeah.
really, for most people, it's the first time they are living on their own. They're independent, and
Yeah.
you start to maybe separate those experiences you had with your parents or just growing up in the community you did, and you start to learn about other people's experiences. And I think that I hope that more people, maybe it's not just college that's the opportunity, but that we all look to have more of those opportunities to learn from other people and try to put ourselves in their shoes and try to understand where they are coming from. And yeah, I certainly think college obviously is a great formula for that happening.
That's great. I want to really get into you because you've done such great work at University of Chicago. I was named the interim athletic director. I was the head basketball coach, and they named me interim athletic director when I was 26, 27 years old,
Wow.
25 years ago.
Yeah.
And I just remember the weight of that interim word and how it, I was, is this going to be my job? Am I going to be, they going to keep me? You've done
Yeah.
such great work with it. You took that interim tag and you turned it into something really great. And I wanted to ask you about the identity that you really saw for the program back then. And has it become what you hoped it would be?
Yeah.
Or has it changed as you moved into that full-time role?
I think first and foremost, before I get into that, I have to give a lot of credit to the coaches, the head coaches of this program before me, Sharon, who I worked for, who's at Colorado College now,
Yeah.
Vanessa Walby, who was here, now she's at Wash U. Both are I'm really close with. So I
Okay.
think they did a lot of heavy lifting to get the program to where it was when I took over as the interim. I think for me, I got to coach, be an assistant in 2019, where we had a lot of success. We were number one in the country. That was obviously really incredible. Sharon has coached for a really long time, a lot of Division I experience. I saw what she did and how it was put in place. I thought, wow, okay, I just have to do this. And I realized that, well, Sharon and I are not the same human beings in the way that our brains work and the way that we see things. So I think that first year as the interim, it was challenging because I think I was battling inside myself. Okay, Sharon did it this way, but maybe that doesn't fully resonate with me, or I'm not going to be able to lead that way because that's just not who I am. So I think
Okay.
to your point, that pressure of, well, I'm the interim. So in a way, you're trying to prove yourself that, hey, I can do this job. This is a job that I want. So maybe that was a little bit of extra pressure. In hindsight, that's almost 4 years ago, a lot younger then, a lot of growth since then. So yeah, I think there was certainly, it was interesting, and it was right after the pandemic. So that obviously had challenges of itself. So yeah, it was a really incredibly valuable experience. Like Sharon had said, hey, if you want to come to CC with me, but she was like, but I think I wanted to be a head coach. She said, I think you having this experience as the interim, even if you don't get the job, is going to be incredibly valuable. And I was fortunate to keep the role. Yeah, just certainly, yeah, what I mean, didn't have a full-time assistant. My assistant is still our volunteer assistant. He had a full-time job. So it was just honestly a blur of a season, to be
Right.
quite honest. But
I
at the
can
same
relate
time,
to that.
it's a lot. But anyway,
Yeah.
at the same time, I wouldn't change it for anything. And I certainly think the way I try to run the program is certainly different than it was in 2021.
The advice you got from Sharon was, hey, come with me if you want, but whether you get this job or not, the experience, being able to dive in and run your
Yeah.
program and really
Yeah.
run it your way is so valuable because, you're going to make mistakes.
Yeah.
It's just inevitable. You're going to recruit the wrong kids. You're
Yep.
going to regret the practice plan. You're going to regret a substitution you made.
Yep.
You have to go through that to get where you are.
Yep.
I want to go back to that word identity. When you think about the identity of where your program is now, what is it that you're talking to your girls about? Because it doesn't matter who I'm watching. I can watch you play. I can watch Platteville play. I can watch Oshkosh. I can watch Hope.
Yep.
And it's just, you can just sense really clearly this
Yeah.
is something they really stress. It's so
Yeah.
important to them. What are those things that are really important to you?
Yeah.
The way you play, the way your girls interact, are there things like that you guys talk about all the time?
Yeah, for sure. I think culture is really important to our team, to our women, especially. I think that they first and foremost want to be in an environment where they feel supported by one another. Obviously, that support looks different in many ways, but I think that's ultimately really incredibly important just because the academic challenges that are presented at a place like U Chicago with how fast everything goes, there it's really stressful. We talk about how volleyball, we want it to be an opportunity for our players to really just be present at practice, competing, whatever it is, and let some of that stress go. And part of that is being in that environment where I have 18 women around me who really love me and respect me. And regardless of our upbringings, we really value one another. So that's super, super important to our current team. In terms of, I'd say, maybe more on the court stuff, communication is a really big one for us. Doesn't mean you need to be, when we're recruiting, we're not always looking for the loudest person per se, but gosh, your ability to communicate with your teammates is not just important in the sport of volleyball as you continue in life. Being able to understand that people communicate differently
Yeah.
and need different feedback. We try to have a conversation at the beginning of the season with the team, but also the team themselves has a conversation with one another of, hey, how do you best give feedback and how do you best receive feedback and how can we best help you in that area? That doesn't mean that, okay, you think this way or you receive feedback this way, and maybe I'm going to push that a little bit. And maybe, let's say, for example, we have a player that's a bit more sensitive to feedback or takes things a little bit more personally. I can be that way. And maybe we're going to challenge that, right? Okay, hey, yeah, maybe you are a little bit more sensitive. And, hey, this player who I could yell at, scream at, and they'd be like, whatever, all good. You're not, obviously, maybe I'm going to communicate with you differently, but I'm also going to challenge you in that when you are in your work environment one day, not everybody is going to have this conversation with you. They're just going to expect that however I communicate with you is how I'm going to communicate with you. And you have to figure it out. I think communication is a big one for us, not just because it makes us better volleyball players and helps us have better chemistry on the court, but also just what does it do for you outside of volleyball and your relationships and your career. So that's really important. And then we just really communication is one of these things. Ultimately, it's how do you control the controllables for us is that's a big one for us, right? So like our how do we show up every day, just our attitude, our mentality, our effort, how we communicate with our teammates, how we treat our teammates, our coaches, our support staff, the waiter at the restaurant. Those are all things that are super, super important. Whether we win or lose, we're going to be a program of high integrity and people that treat other people the right way because winning is great and we want to win a national championship and that's awesome. But most likely people are going to remember how you treated them and how they made you feel. And so if we can be a program that is, hey, we treat everyone we interact with respect, we just be great humans, I guess, at the end of the day. So we try to incorporate some of those volleyball things and how do we translate that to life? And 3 or 4 years in our program, how can we help you not only become a great volleyball player, but also a great human being and someone that's going to go out into the world and make a positive impact at the end of the day?
Yeah. You're going into year 5, right?
Yes, this will be season 5.
So you've got seniors that have been with you from day
Yeah.
one, know who you are, know your expectations. Have you seen a change from year 1 to year 5 and how those seniors become the voice of that identity and how they teach the freshmen that they come in the door? Or you see that in the
Yeah.
doses now?
Yeah, I think so. Like our current rising seniors, they were seniors in high school during my first season. So I think them especially have really, I think, taken that message and run with it. And just in how they are going to treat their teammates ultimately at the end of the day. I think for myself and my staff, we're all different and we all have different experiences. But it's just really important that we still just treat humans like humans. I think ultimately, I want it to come from a place of love and respect, and that, hey, I'm saying this to you, or we're having this conversation because I love you and I want you. I think that because I'm older and have more experience. I think that I can see this lesson in your ability to grow in this area. And I think our rising seniors who will be our captains or who are our captains, they're both very different. And with both of them, we've had different challenges, especially I think about how they were as first years and just how much they've grown since or now. And I certainly don't take all the credit for that. But we've had difficult and tough conversations. And it's really, I think, in maybe in the moment, it wasn't always super well received. But I think if you probably ask them now, they'd be like, okay, but they were right, or I understood where they were coming from. I
Yeah.
see what they were trying to. So it's been really fun to see our team evolve as I've evolved. And I think as a leader, you just try to be really consistent in how you show up and how you treat people and the energy that you bring every day. And I think if you are consistent, your team will also be consistent in how they show up every day as well.
Coach, as a dad of a almost 16-year-old volleyball player, it makes me feel so good to hear not what you're saying, but how you're saying it, because you say it with so much passion. It really sounds like your program is such a safe place to be in terms of your growth and your development and being able to take chances and being able to figure out who you are as a human being.
Yep.
It just sounds like you've created that culture where if you're mature enough to just open your eyes for a second and say, this is pretty good. I'm probably not going to get this at every place.
I think that's an important, I think for us, that's how we try to differentiate ourselves through the recruiting process is we are, yeah, we are ultimately trying to help you grow and become the best version of yourself. And those lessons can be taught through on the court and off the court. And that's why obviously sport is such an incredible avenue for people to learn so much about themselves. But yeah, it hasn't always been great. Like you said, there have been a lot of mistakes, things that you reflect upon and you say, okay, moving forward, I can be better in this. And I think a big thing for me has been as an assistant for a long time, you are in the head coaching role. You make ultimately every decision, right? You get the credit whether you deserve it. You get the blame whether you deserve it. And that's been a challenge for me. I want people to be in an environment where they feel really happy or they feel safe and inclusive.
Right.
At the same time, I can also create that environment while still being direct and having tough conversations and ultimately not telling people what they want to hear, but what think is going to help them grow and become better.
I love it. There's not a better way to really self-analyze yourself and see your growth from year one to year two to year three than being a college coach. I tell people all the time, I still have all my folders from 2001. And I remember my first year as a head college coach 25 years ago, I had one folder in my computer.
Mm-hmm.
Year two, I had four folders. By the time I got to year 10, I had 50 folders because I learned there's so many things that I have to be responsible for.
Yeah.
I don't want to have to recreate this every year. I don't want to have to rebuild. So it's not with just my maturity and in learning patience and learning how to take the good with the bad, but it was just how do I get myself organized? Are there things you look back at the 5-year older version of yourself and go, gosh, I've improved so much in those categories?
Yeah.
You see that?
Yeah, for sure. It's obviously it's a little bit harder to recognize in the moment
Yeah.
sometimes. I think, like I was saying, I think my ability to be maybe a little bit more direct in my communication with our athletes when I feel like there's an opportunity for them to grow, whether it's, hey, your attitude or the way that you're responding to mistakes, I think is harming yourself and the team. I think ultimately it's my job to be honest and direct with my athletes, with our women. It is not my job to try to appease everybody or make everybody happy with playing time or whatnot. It's my job to create an experience that is unparalleled that they would get anywhere else. And I think part of that is our players want to be challenged and they do want to grow. Even if in the moment there's pushback, I know that ultimately at the end of the day, that's what they want. And it is nice because I think it's something we talk about in the recruiting process. And so I think when our athletes now get here, that's the expectation is that, if my coaches see something that I could be doing better, they're going to tell me. And it's not always going to maybe be in the moment that is best per se when it's right, but they're going to tell me and they're going to help me grow. So I definitely think my communication has grown a lot because it is different from being an assistant to a head coach. I think organization is certainly a place of growth still, for sure. I think it's to your point, it's
Yep,
like creating a system that you're working smarter, not harder. And
that's
I think
right.
sometimes there's this like notion with coaching that, and I'm challenged with this, is if you're not grinding, you're not responding to emails till 11 p.m., you're not going to win. And I don't want that life for myself personally. So I think it's trying to find ways that you can work smarter and not harder all the time.
I went through that. My first 12 years of coaching, I was married and we didn't have any kids. So
Mm,
it was really easy for me to just get sucked into an 80-hour week
yeah.
and see my wife at 10 o'clock. And I love
Yeah.
the fact that you're feeling that already. I gotta see my husband, my
Hmm.
time for myself,
Right.
and I gotta have
Yep.
time for the girls. It's so
Yep.
important.
Absolutely.
I want to get into player development with you because you've done such a great job of really developing your kids from the ground up and finding those right kids. You were a lib in college, right? You played lib.
Yeah, I did for 2 years.
I love talking about the positions because I was a
Mhm.
point guard and I had to teach. I had
Yeah.
to teach all these big kids as a basketball coach, 6'7", 6'8" kids,
Yeah.
and I was always the
Right.
little guy.
Yeah.
So when you think about that, when you think about the work you've done at the D1 level and the D3 level, working with DSs, working with outsides, how do you go about tailoring your player development across those different positions? Because you got what, 18 girls on your roster, typically 15, 18?
Yeah.
How do you go about formulating that 2 hour practice, that 5 hour practice, 5 day practice week? How do you go about it so those kids really get the teaching they need to grow?
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, I think it's so for me, it's important to obviously have certain, whether it's drills or concepts that are you stay true to in the things that you teach kind of year in and year out. It's also in my staff that we look at the players we currently have and we tailor things to obviously what their needs are, right? So if we have maybe we have middles that are maybe less experienced or just they need more work in this area compared to maybe some other teams we've had. Obviously, we're going to make that more of a priority. You could tailor that across all positions and whatnot. As a head coach, it's important. You have to be pretty proficient in every skill or position per se, especially at our level, right? I don't have 3 full-time assistants who I could designate. I think
Yeah.
for myself and Jen, my assistant, we do a pretty good job of balancing one another that we both feel really confident in taking libs, DSs, attackers, setters, and we can, depending on the day, be able to take whatever position it is. Ultimately, I decide where I want to be, obviously.
Yeah.
A lot of times that ends up being setter hitter things just because offense in volleyball is so obviously incredibly crucial. So a lot of times Jen does a lot of defensive stuff, first contact with our DS liberos. We typically like to practice on 2 courts because it does give us the opportunity to do some sort of positional breakout every
Yeah.
single day, even if that's 10, 15 minutes of whatever little thing that we want to get better at. Then oftentimes we really try to then translate that skill work into, okay, now we're playing 6-on-6, we're playing live. And how do we then tailor the drill? Let's say we just, for 10 minutes, we worked on setter middle connection when the pass is 8, 10 feet off the net. Okay, now that's going to be the priority in the 6-on-6 play. So that way our players can say, hey, I just worked on this. Now I'm going into a more chaotic, uncontrolled environment, but I feel confident that I just worked on this. I think making sure that there is a reason and a progression to everything that we're doing. And certainly at a place like U Chicago, other high academics, our players want to know, why are we doing this? What's the purpose? I can't just have a drill and say, I just felt like doing this today. There needs to be, when we're planning practice, we want to make sure that everything that we are doing has a reason. We're able to tell our players this is why we're doing this. This is the rep count, or we're playing to this point or whatever. And so I think that's been really great being at a place like U Chicago because it really forces you to be you, our staff. We have to be great in practice every day because if we're not great, our players are going to be disappointed because they're obviously really high achieving. They have high expectations. We have high expectations. So if we have high expectations for them, we have to hold ourselves to the same standard as well. So we really try to have a decent balance. I think we try to compete a lot as much as possible, even if it's not 6-on-6.
Love
Obviously,
it.
competition is where they're going to feel uncomfortable. They're going to be challenged the most. Certainly, like in our fall season, we try to compete in as much as we can while knowing, hey, there's a time and a place to maybe slow something down and break something down and just rep something out without the outside noise of competing. But ultimately, we compete. The record shows winning or losing in competition. So we need to practice that as much as possible. And then the last thing I want to add on quickly is we talk a lot. My assistant, Jen, she has her master's in mental performance. So that's another big component that we try to incorporate into our practices.
Huge. Yeah.
Whether that's before practice, we talk a lot about like mindfulness and just really being present. Big quote our team likes is be where your feet are. And that's a big one for us, just because our players are really high achieving and they have found success in just about everything that they've done. Sometimes our challenge is how do we get our players to sit with the discomfort of, hey, we lost that match, or it's not the end of the world, but okay, hey, what do we learn from this experience? How do we grow from this experience? And that's what we can focus on moving forward, because it can become very analytical in that we like oh, I attacked that ball out. What did I do? Sometimes you just miss it. Move on. Like it is what it is. It's okay. It's a great problem for us to have, that our players are they are attentive to detail, that
Yeah.
they want, and again, that's the reason why we have to be great, because they really want to know and do as much as they can to be the best. But some of it's, again, life skills, trying to teach them how do we move on from mistakes? How do we accept that we are going to make mistakes and be okay with that and not let it dictate how we're going to perform the next point, the next match, whatever it might be.
It's okay to not be okay.
Yeah, absolutely. And as someone who comes from, both my parents are teachers, come from rural Iowa, I think in that environment, you sometimes you got to figure things out yourself. There's not always someone there to clean up the mess. Sometimes you just go through tough times, and I've tried to take that experience and allow our players to try to learn from that as well.
That's great. And it's so important for us coaches to understand that, because oftentimes we know it because we're older and more experienced, but it's making sure the kids understand, yeah, we're working hard. We're going to be disappointed when we don't do great things, but that doesn't mean the world's going to end. We can be upset and not be ready to jump off a building. You know
Yeah,
I mean?
for sure. Yeah, I think it does help being at a place like Chicago, because volleyball is not like the be all end all, to them. And that doesn't mean that they don't care by any means, or they're not upset when we maybe don't achieve goals or win or whatever it might be. They also, I think, do understand that there is more to life than winning and losing a volleyball match or whatever it might be. They understand that there's more success for them to be had. Which I tell them, hey, for a lot of them, getting a B or a C on a test is the first time that's ever happened in their whole academic life. It happens here at Chicago. So, like, how do you respond to that failure per se, right? It's not really a failure, but how do you respond to that failure or that falling short of something? And that's, you just keep moving on. You keep going and keep giving it your best, and that's all you can do.
My word is significance. My book is called Significant Recruiting. My business is called Significant Coaching. So I talk about significance a lot. And everything you're saying is screaming significance at me, because you don't want things to rely on mere chance. And that's the whole concept of significance. Anybody can come in a gym and get a ball spiked off their face, and that ball could go back over the net and land and get a point. It's teaching them how to be prepared for every situation, so they know how to drop step and get their frame right to control where that ball goes more and more. I want to talk about your league, because your league is a friggin' gauntlet. There's no weak sisters. There's no puppies in your league. So with all that, the idea of significance and how you prepare your team, how do you prepare your team for the physicality and the mentality of going through that gauntlet? Because when I look at your records, man, and you're winning 20 games almost every year in that league. How do you do it?
It's tough. I tell you what, it's tough. And every year I'm like, when is it going to get? It's just gotten better since I've been in 2019. It has gotten significantly better. When I first started in 2019, us, Emory, Wash were pretty good. And not to say that other teams weren't great, but just the level from 3 through 6 and even 7 and 8 has significantly jumped. So yeah, I think how we prepare them, I think we're in a really fortunate spot in the Midwest in that it's a pretty great area for Division III volleyball, in that we don't have to travel very far to play some of the best teams in the country outside of our conference. And we only play 7 regular season conference matches, and then we have our conference tournament. So we only play everybody once, maybe
Right.
twice if we see them in the conference tournament. So it's my job to, okay, we have this gauntlet of a league. How do we, I think in order for us to, the UAA is winning a UAA championship is really important and to our team, and that's a big goal that we have. But ultimately, the goal is to win a national championship. For me, okay, if we want to be the best, you have to play against the best. Every year we play Hope, who last 2 years has been national runner-up. We play a lot of the WIAC schools, which
Yep.
is, you talk about a gauntlet there.
Yep.
So like this fall, we'll play Oshkosh, Whitewater, Platteville, Eau Claire. So four of the best teams in the
You
WIAC.
are a glutton for punishment, coach.
I know. And
Oh my gosh.
every year, this is my dilemma in scheduling is I want to play the best,
Yeah.
but it doesn't really prepare us ultimately for what our goals are at the end of the season.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm 100%. And I was the same way as a coach.
Yeah. So now I do think there is a balance there.
Yeah.
We can't play a top 25 team every single match outside of our conference.
It sounds like you're trying, though.
Yeah. I think what's so great, I think in Division III, especially the programs that are in the top 25 consistently,
Yeah.
they all have they have very similar mindsets. And so a lot of times we all want to play one another because we know that, hey, even if like last year we were 25-11, okay, those 11 losses don't look great, but all 11 of those losses are teams that make the NCAA tournament. To me, it's not about the record per se and having, oh, I want to have the highest winning percentage or win the most matches. It's really about how do we produce the best team by the end of the season. And you got to go through hard times to get there. Certainly scheduling tough is a big one for us. And one other thing that is important is, I get this from our women's tennis coach, who's now won multiple national championships with our tennis teams. And one thing that he said, he spoke at a student athlete event we had, and it really resonated with me. And he just said that his women's tennis team had finished national runner-up, I think it was 2 or 3 years in a row, right? Rough problem to have, right? But you're almost like you're just right there, and like multiple years in a row. And he said that his team just decided that we're going to stop waiting for it to get easier, right? Oh, we're going to wait for CMS to lose this player. We're going to wait for this NESCAC school to lose this good player. And they just decided, you know what? We just have to handle hard better. And I think that really resonated with me because in the UAA, D3 volleyball is so good. You just have to stop waiting for things to get easier. It's not going to get easier. You just have to handle hard better than other people. You just gotta push through things and not really make excuses or, oh, they were just really good. Yeah, they were really good. So what are we going to do about it? We got to control what we can control and not make excuses. Yeah, the hard schedule certainly helps us though.
Yeah, absolutely. You want your kids to get to that national tournament and go, we've been here, done this.
Yep,
We're not afraid of you.
Exactly, for sure.
Everybody we played looks like you.
Exactly.
Everybody we played has got a 6'2" front line. Everybody we played's got a libero that can get every ball up.
Yep.
We know how to beat you. We're not afraid.
Yep. And it's great for our confidence to be able to look back on those situations. And we as coaches can point out exactly what you're saying. Hey, we've done this many times throughout the season. So what's another one?
Well, I think we found the title of your podcast, and I'm definitely going to steal that from you. We're going to handle hard better. I love that.
Yeah. It's not my quote, so I'm not going to claim it, but gosh, has it really resonated with me. It's really just, there's a really great Netflix documentary out there, and I can't remember the actor, but he's talking with his therapist, and his therapist is talking about how, in life, there are things that we can't avoid. And one of them is shit hitting the fan, hard stuff. Like ultimately it's going to keep happening. And I think there is this notion in our society that like, oh, when I get to this age, it just gets easier. Or when I get my job, it gets easier. And it just presents new challenges. So that's where, hey, just handle hard better or try.
I love it. It's the blessing and the curse of being a coach, because you want to be great. You want to grow your kids. And there's so many ways to do that. But at the end of the day, the faster you can throw them in the fire, they learn how to
Yep.
extinguish that fire. They learn how to deal with the heat. And
Yep.
I love your approach with that. If one of your players was on the podcast, what do you think they would say about you?
Oh gosh. I think they would say that, hey, our coaches really care about us as human beings. And I
Okay.
think I will always take pride in that. And whether or not I'm the best volleyball coach or whatnot, that can be your opinion, whatever. But I want our players to know that we really value them as humans and as people first and foremost. I think that all of our players could say when we have individual meetings, we talk a little bit about volleyball, but it's mostly about life. But that, to me, I want them to feel as though we're really invested in the relationship that we have with them. And it's not yes, it's coach player, but it's human to human. I think for our women, it's going to help them perform at the highest level if they know that, hey, first and foremost, my coaches really love me. Whether or not I'm a great volleyball player, that isn't ultimately what decides how they feel about me as a person. So yeah, I think they would say that Mitchell, he really cares about us. And
Okay.
at least I hope that's what they would say.
Doesn't surprise me in the least, coach.
But well, I guess we had a recruit here a couple weeks ago, and we asked, "Oh, how was your time with the players?" And they were like, "Oh, it's great." They said that you and Jen are like their aunt and uncle. And I was like, "Oh, that's great. I love that." For a lot of our players, obviously, they're from across the country or whatnot. They're playing right away from home, so it's important for us to be a good support system for them.
I love it. I love it. Let's talk about recruiting a little
Yeah.
bit because that's why I asked you that question. I wanted to lead into recruiting a little
Yeah.
bit. What are some of the things that you've got to have? Are there non-negotiables for you when you're, and obviously a 22 ACT and a 3.0 is a non-negotiable for University of Chicago. But what are some of
Yeah.
those characteristics that you're looking for, effort,
Yeah.
skill set? Are the things that you just got to have when you bring a recruit in the door?
Yeah. It's a great question. Yeah, I think we really try to make sure that they are people of high integrity. I think that's super important. And obviously, having a lot of conversations with them, but also talking to the people that they are around a lot, right? So whether it's their high school coach, their club coach, whomever it might be, I always start the conversation with that person. I don't want fluff. Be honest, be direct. This is someone that ultimately these are people that we are around a lot. And I want to enjoy the time that I spend with the team. And that doesn't mean that obviously there aren't going to be challenges and whatnot, but I want to be around people that I enjoy being around. We have some people that are highly extroverted, but we also have a few players that are more introverted, more quiet, whatnot. And I think that's important to me to bring in a diverse array of players, whether that's personality, race, that's where they come from, socioeconomic. I want our players to have an experience that they are around different people than them. I don't want to recruit 18 of the same person, but they need to be great people first and foremost, and they want to treat other people with respect and whatnot. I think when we're watching recruits play, I think the effort piece is important, right? Because I don't really want to teach effort. That's something I
When
don't.
you figure out how to do that, will you let
Yeah,
me know?
yeah, right. So I think just are they giving their best on the court, but also a big one for us is how do they act when they're not playing? And whether that's, oh, hey, a middle plays 3 rotations and they come out, right? But maybe they're not playing that set, they're not playing that match. A big one for us is what are they like on the bench? Are they really engaged? Are they really are they supporting their teammates? Or are they pouting, talking to the person next to them and not really paying attention? That's super, super important to me because like our bench, we call it like our bench culture is really important and how that can have a huge impact on just the match and how we do.
Can that change your
Yeah,
perspective on a kid that you're like, wow, that athleticism is something else? And then you see what happens on the bench. Can you
for
go
sure.
180 degrees really quickly?
100%. My
I could
assistants
too.
have checked off many people that we've been interested in that we walk up to their court, they're not playing, and I can't tell you there's multiple times where we look for so we walk up to their court, we look for their number. Oh, okay, they're not playing. Okay, let me look if we're on the bench. And they are totally disengaged, totally just not present, obviously. Maybe they're upset that they're not playing. And I immediately am like, nope, I just don't want to deal with that. I don't want to deal with that. I don't want to. try to motivate our players to support their teammates. That is a given being a part of a team sport, is that whether you are playing or not, you support your teammates. And that's by being engaged, giving feedback to them, that those that are playing, you're cheering, whatever it is, there has to be some sign of. And so if they're doing it, if they're not engaged now, it's just a culture issue that we've had that's been an issue for us a couple of years ago. It's just not something that I personally want to deal with as a head coach. Yeah, it's that off the court stuff is super important. But really, yeah, I think I personally am a little more attracted to an athlete that's maybe sometimes a little bit smaller, jumps really well, or is really fast. That's more of the style that I like. Now,
Yeah.
we have two first-year middles coming in that are 6'3" and 6'2". That's not always the case, but that certainly helps.
Oh, well
But
done.
they're both super athletic and they both move
Nice.
really well. And yeah, I like a player who you try to look at obviously the potential that they have from a volleyball perspective. And sometimes we have players that are maybe a little bit more raw and just not as experienced, but we feel confident in our training that we can catch them up to speed, get them to be, even if it's not, hey, first year you're starting and playing, but by second, third, fourth year, that's the expectation
Yeah.
is, yeah, that you're competing for a spot.
I love it. I tell kids all the time, the longer you're a college coach, the more recruiting becomes like shopping for clothes. If you're going to walk through a Ross or a TJ Maxx or you name it, you know really quickly, okay, that's not going to wash well.
Yep.
That's not going to fit me well.
Yep.
That is going to be uncomfortable. I don't like that
Yep.
material. And the more you do, more you're recruiting, the more you can look at a kid and go, I'm not going to enjoy coaching her. She's not going to enjoy playing for me. She's
Right.
not going to be able to keep up.
Absolutely. And I think that's important. It's important that you mention they're not going to enjoy me, because I do think that while we are obviously recruiting an athlete, they are also recruiting us. Like they are
Right.
trying to
Right.
figure out, hey, is this a good fit? Are you a good fit for me as a coach? And we don't want the recruiting process to feel like we are just recruiting that. We want it to feel like a two-way street, in that we are both mutually recruiting one another,
Yeah.
trying to figure out, is this the best fit for, and we know that we are not the only part of their experience in college, but we hope that obviously we can be one that's really impactful.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're going to get a world-class education at University of Chicago, but they're getting a world-class education on your court too.
That's what we hope.
Yeah.
But it's the good challenge that we have
Yeah.
is mediocrity is not an acceptable way for us to go at our job here,
Yeah.
especially from our players.
Again, parents and teenagers need to understand this. If they want somebody like you to recruit them, you've got to show Coach McPartland, all right, what am I bringing to his program? What am I going to do to make it better?
Yeah.
Okay. This isn't just I'm buying a ticket to go to the show. What am I going to do to make his program better? Because I'm going to leave his school with this and this. What
Right.
can I bring to the table? It's like a job interview. As soon as you
Yeah.
start talking about, hey, what can you do for me? You're not a very good candidate.
For sure. Because we want them to know, hey, this is what we can do for you, but what are you going to bring to our culture that's
right.
different, or what are you going to enhance, or whether that's volleyball off the court, always looking for people that are going to add, yeah, something new or different to our program.
And that's what kids need to understand too, is the better the school and the better the program, the more options you have, the more you can say no a lot more. You can walk away a lot more and a lot faster because there's another 20 girls that want to go to the University of Chicago.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. And some, not, we don't say this very often. Once in a blue moon, it's, hey, I think it's, we talk a good amount about like gratitude and just,
Yeah.
You can get lost in the stress and chaos of everything, but just being like, hey, we're really grateful that we have this opportunity, because there are a lot of people at a U Chicago, UA, NESCAC, whatever, that, they would love to be in your position because
That's right.
they want to have that experience you're having. And yeah, for sure.
Cool. Coach, I just so enjoyed talking to you and I really appreciate your time.
Yeah.
Would you do a little rapid fire with me?
Sure.
Some
Yeah,
quick fire
absolutely.
questions for you. These are fun. I think you'll like them.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Libero or setter? Which position is more underrated?
Ooh, underrated. Oh my gosh. That's a hard one.
Because they're really the hardest to recruit, aren't they?
Yeah.
Don't you got to put the most time into those kids?
I would agree that those are the two positions that are, you can't just watch someone warm up and go, oh, wow, that's okay.
Yeah.
We can work with that. It does take more time. Underrated, I want to say, I feel like libero, because a really good libero, not that a really good setter doesn't make a difference too, But I almost feel like it's maybe a little more undervalued impact that they can have. And maybe I'm just being a little biased as a former libero myself, but
I think a novice would tell you that too. If you're watching volleyball and you're like, that ball never hits the floor on that side. It seems like 80% of the time it's the same kid that's getting the ball up.
yeah,
It's
for
always
sure.
that lip.
And I think the liberos get more, like they have more of those, wow, what an amazing dig, or wow, that was incredible. The setters, I think, go a little more like under the radar in
Yeah.
there. But as someone who has coached for a while now, I think that setters are, I think the way volleyball is evolving in our country, I think setters are getting more and more recognition for what they do. And I still think liberos are underappreciated
Yeah.
just as a whole.
Yeah. They're also typically the last ones to get recruited too, right?
In our class, it probably depends. I don't know what it's like the D1 level, but if you have a really good libero, gosh, that makes a big difference. Obviously, just your ability to win matches. But yeah, they are typically last in the recruiting process.
There's a lot of great 5'4" liberos out there, but it's really hard to find that 6'2" outside with the huge gun and can really rip it, touch 10-5. And
but yeah, ultimately your hitters are the ones that they got to put the ball away. So
they do. Favorite away gym in the UAA?
Ooh, good question. Let me think. So Carnegie Mellon has a new facility, which is beautiful. NYU has a new facility, which is beautiful. So they're really nice. Honestly, though, I have to say I really like playing in Rochester's gym. I don't know if you've been there, but
I've seen the pictures. I don't think I've been in that gym.
If it's older, like that, like a circle, it's different. It's old,
a little like Illinois Wesleyan,
but even smaller than that.
Really
Small.
Okay. I love those old gyms.
It reminds me of high school. It's just like intimate. I enjoy their gym, and I think Rochester is such a cool city.
Yeah, it is. That's great. All right, one book, podcast, or documentary every coach should consume. That's okay. Anything that you're like, gosh, that really made a difference for me. It really opened my eyes. Anything like that?
Yeah, that's a really good question. The documentary on Netflix, I believe it's called, I'm trying to think. It's the one I was talking about earlier. The way the therapist talks about the way our brain processes things was really impactful for me. The way our brain works is so fascinating, and how that impacts our sport is also really fascinating.
When you think of it, text it to me later today.
Yes,
I want to check it out. I love that stuff.
It's really interesting.
Good. Is there a volleyball hill that you're willing to die on? Is there something you're like, if I could get that done, or if I could get to that accomplishment? Is there one of those things like,
yeah.
Anything personally for your team, anything like that?
Yeah. I think for our program right now, I think like winning a UA championship is super important, because I think it's obviously a conference championship is really great, but like with how good our conference is, I think I mean, what a confidence booster that gives you, that, oh, wow, we can win our conference championship. I think and for me personally, I think that's a big one, because my first year here as an assistant, we finished first in the regular season, then we lost in 5 in the finals. So that was like, we were so close. So I think that's a big one. And then ultimately, I almost won a national championship as a player. And so that would ultimately be the goal, just that incredible feeling, but one step at a time.
Absolutely. And my niece is going through the same thing.
Yeah.
That league is just a bear too. And
oh my gosh, goodness gracious.
And it just seems, and I'm seeing you do the same thing. Like every year, it's just like you're getting one more notch in that ladder, right?
Yeah. But so does everyone else. And that's the heart again, but I can't wait for everyone else to get worse. You just got to keep raising the level.
You do. And you're doing it. You're going to get there. I put you in a room with 300 volleyball parents. What's the one piece of advice you want them to walk out the door with about recruiting?
My always big one is be authentically you, and find the fit that is best for you. And the saying goes, comparison is the thief of joy. Stop comparing yourself to other people and their journey and their recruiting process. Be true to your values, be true to what you want your experience to be, and go for it. If you want to play at the Division I level, that's awesome. Then you go for it. But also, there are also other really great opportunities outside of Division I. And I think the volleyball community is getting, and that's why I think D3 is getting better and better, is more and more parts of the country are starting to send their players to Division III schools and are like, wow, look at that success that they're having. Look how much they're winning. They're competing for a national championship. And then they get a great education, or they get to have experiences that are outside of volleyball. But yeah, I think ultimately be authentically you, and that's in whether you're interacting with coaches, players, whatever it is. I think that's always a big one for me.
Great advice. Absolutely great advice. Coach, it has been such a joy to get to know you. I'd love to call, if you're up for it, I'm going to call you a friend. And,
Yeah, for
if
sure. Absolutely.
if there's ever anything I can do for you or the women in your
Yeah,
program or your program itself, don't be afraid to ask. But it was just a
absolutely.
joy getting to know you. And I know great things are ahead of you.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I always love, similar to what you said, it's always really great talking to other coaches and
Yeah,
just getting to hear what their philosophies are and what they value. And so it's been a fun conversation. So I really appreciate you asking me to do this. It's been great.
my pleasure. Good luck in 2025. We'll be cheering for
There
you.
you go. Thanks, Matt. Appreciate it.
Well, that's a wrap for this week's Significant Coaching Podcast. Huge thanks to Coach Mitchell McPartland for joining me and sharing such thoughtful insight into his coaching journey, his philosophy on leadership, and the incredible work happening at the University of Chicago. If this conversation resonated with you, whether you're a coach, a parent, or a student athlete, I'd love for you to subscribe and leave a review. Your feedback helps us reach more people who are passionate about growth, culture, and significance in sports. And remember, if you're navigating the college athletics recruiting process or want to bring me in to speak at your school or organization, head over to CoachMattRogers.com. You'll find my weekly blog, speaking info, and tools to help families and coaches at every stage of the journey, including my book, Significant Recruiting, the Playbook for Prospective College Athletes. Until next time, keep leading with purpose and chasing significance over success.